Good morning, students. Welcome to the second session of the chapter Rat Trap. And we completed 4 questions in the first session. And those 4 questions, the first question was, why was the peddler's life sad and monotonous? Then, why did he compare the world to a rat trap which offered baits? And people get lured or tempted by the baits and they were ensnared. This is what we read about the metaphor rat trap. Then, why was the thought entertaining to the peddler? The thought that the world was a rat trap, why was it entertaining? And we had done the 2 answers. The world was not good, so thinking bad about the world gave him happiness, and plus he was happy that he was out of it. Then how did he fall into the rat trap? Was he knocked the door of a crofter's house, and the crofter, as he himself was very lonely and plus he wanted to share his happiness with somebody, he allowed a vagabond into the house, and one by one, unknowingly, the baits were presented to the peddler. But the final bait, that is money, because this crofter had earned 30 kronas and he wanted to show that money to somebody because he was very happy, and he showed that money to the vagabond, and that acted as the final nail in the coffin. The next day the peddler stole that money and he fell into the rat trap, but doesn't know now that he has fallen into it. He just stole that money and went away. Now, I'll just bring your attention to that particular point. When we started the chapter, I told you that when a rat enters the rat trap, the first emotion of the rat is of fear. Then the second emotion is that it makes attempts to escape. On the contrary, when human beings are caught inside the rat trap, the first emotion is of happiness, that yes, we have got what we wanted. Then the second emotion, of course, is fear, that whatever we have got, we should not lose it. And the third emotion might be that now we never wish to escape. We are happily, comfortably settled inside because we don't know that we are there in the rat trap. So the emotions are a little bit different from what a rat experiences and what a human being experiences. Now, here this philosophy was given by the peddler, and he doesn't know that he has fallen into the rat trap. How does he come to know? But before that, let us see his first emotions as he has stolen that money. So let's see the last paragraph on page number 34. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased. So the first emotion is a happiness that he could get that money. Okay, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway. I told you the second emotion is of fear. He had that money with him. So he knew he could not now walk on the highway because any time he could be caught and the money could be taken away, and he did not want to lose that money. So the second emotion is fear. Then the next thing, but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. It happens, students, when people get lost in deserts or in water or in a forest. It's very tough to come out because they think they're walking straight, but many times it happens that they're just turning around the same place. Then, all at once, he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. This is when he realized. If you are asked that when did the peddler realize that he has fallen into the rat trap, it was when he got lost into the forest. He realized he had got into a rat trap and now he would never be able to escape it. All at once, he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. He now realized he has fallen into a rat trap. The next thing that happens is he thinks that now he'll be dead and he submits to death. It is then when he hears something. So let us see the first paragraph on the next page. It was late in December. So remember, it is acute cold also that time. It was late in December. Darkness was already descending over the forest. This increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. Gloom means sadness and darkness, and here it means both. It was dark outside, and plus it was dark inside his heart because he was getting no hope. And at the same time, he was getting that condition that yes, now things would all go wrong. And despair. Finally, he saw no way out and he sank down on the ground, tired to death, thinking that his last moment had come. But just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound, a raw, hard, regular thumping. There was no doubt as to what that was. He raised himself. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill, he thought. There must be some people nearby. He summoned all his strength, got up, and staggered in the direction of the sound. He understood that the hard, regular thumping was the hammer strokes from an iron mill. And if these are the hammer strokes, if there is an iron mill, there must be people. He'll get shelter and he might be safe from all the things. Like he was already convinced that he would die. So he got a ray of hope in the form of an iron mill. Now the coming page, students, you will find that it is a description of the iron mill, which in fact you will feel is not a necessary part of the chapter. But the story is of Sweden, and the basis of the economy of Sweden is iron ore. And that's why all Swedish writers in their write-ups try to show reverence towards those bases of economy by including the description of the iron mill somewhere in their write-ups. And here you'll find a complete description, and this description in fact cannot be asked directly, but you should know how an iron mill works. So the thing is that in an iron mill, they get some solid pieces of iron and they mold that iron into different articles of daily use. So how is this done? Let us see it. So as we stop by the words which you are not able to understand, I'll explain them as they are. So let's begin. The Ramsey Iron Works, which was now closed down, were not so long ago a large plant. Plant means what we say is a factory sort of thing. A large plant with smelter, rolling mill and forge. In the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows. Barges and scows are flat bottom boats. You don't have to bring the scrap from the other places in trucks and something. They can be brought through the canal, because maximum places in Sweden you will find canals. So that becomes a easy and a cheap method of transportation. So the scrap can be transported from one place to the other in these flat bottom boats, which are called barges and scows. Okay. Long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows slid down the canal, which led to a large inland lake. And in the winter time, the roads near the mills were black from all the coal dust which sifted down from the big charcoal crates. Now, charcoal has to be brought, because if iron is to be heated, it has to be heated in coal. And when coal is brought in crates, some of the coal dust, it comes down from the trucks and it drops on the road. So the road had become black. Then, during one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith, we know that people who work with iron and all are called blacksmith. So he's the master smith. The master smith and his helper sat in the dark forge. Now, forge is a place where the furnace is. We all know that iron is to be heated in coal, and it is kept in a furnace. And the room where the furnace is called the forge. So now, sat in the dark forge near the furnace, waiting for the pig iron which had been put in the fire. Pig iron is a solid piece of iron. It's one of the solidest iron. Iron has got types, no? It has mold iron, cast iron. So this is the pig iron. And a piece was kept in the coal to be heated. Then, pig iron which had been put in the fire to be ready to put on the anvil. Now, anvil is that iron structure on which one person sits close to that anvil, holding that pig iron with the tongs. Tongs is something like chimta, and they hold it with the tongs, and the other one beats it and beats the iron, the hot iron, and they then get the desired shape. And when they get the desired shape, they immerse that hot iron into the water, and then they check the shape. So this is how it is done. So anvil is a structure of, just like if you have seen the cobbler working, that type of structure is the anvil. To be ready to put on the anvil, every now and then one of them got to stir the glowing mass with a long iron bar, returning in a few moments dripping with perspiration. Of course, it is very hot inside the forge, so when they returned with lot of perspiration. Though, as was the custom, he wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. All the time there were many sounds to be heard in the forge. Now, if you are asked why the master smith could not notice the peddler coming inside, the reason was that there were many sounds. Which were those sounds? Let us see. The big bellows groan. What are bellows? Like if the iron is heated in the furnace, then to ignite the fire, some air has to be blown, and that air cannot be blown through anything else. It is through a big pipe that brings the air inside. So that air is brought through bellows. Those are the big pipes. So the big bellows were groaning because air was entering there. The big bellows groaned and the burning charcoal cracked. You can understand the coal was also burning. Then the fire boy shoveled charcoal into the maw of the furnace. Shovel, you understand, is a instrument with a long handle with which we take the coal and put it into the fire, just like if you must have seen in the old steam engines. So that way. The fire boy shoveled charcoal into the maw. Maw is the maw of the furnace with a great deal of clatter. Outside roared the waterfall, and a sharp north wind whipped the rain against the brick tiled roof. Now, if you just have a quick revision, the bellows were groaning, the fireboy was shoveling charcoal, the coal was burning, then outside was the waterfall, there was a sharp north wind, and the rain. An account of all these was what happened was the blacksmith did not notice that the peddler had come inside. Then, it was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that a man had opened the gate and entered the forge until he stood close up to the furnace. Surely it was nothing unusual for poor vagabonds without any better shelter for the night to be attracted to the forge by the glow of light which escaped through the sooty panes. Now it happened. Many people, if they got lost into the forest, they came to the forge. So for the blacksmith, it was nothing new, and he thought that okay, he must have come, and he'll go by morning. So in fact, he will not stop him coming inside, and he'll not stop him from staying there also. He just glanced at him and then got busy in his work. Then and to come in to warm themselves in front of the fire. The blacksmiths glanced only casually and indifferently at the intruder. He looked the way people of his type usually did, with a long beard, dirty and ragged, and with a bunch of rat traps dangling on his chest. This is the appearance of the peddler. Then he asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a haughty consent. A haughty consent in the sense it was an arrogant consent that if you want, you stay. It doesn't matter that you stay or not. So it was a sort of a consent, acceptance. Okay, you can say. He asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a haughty consent without honoring him with a single word. The tramp did not say anything either. I told you the peddler has been called by different names, and one of the names is peddler, tramp, or the rat trap seller. So here, the tramp did not say anything either. He had not come there to talk, but only to warm himself and sleep. In those days, the Ramsjo iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master. You should not get mistaken. The man who was working there was the blacksmith, and he was assisted by his apprentice, his helper. The owner of the iron mill was the iron master. And as the man was sitting close to the furnace, the peddler was sitting close to the furnace, the iron master came. And now see what strange turn this story takes. So let us see it. In those days, the Ramsjo iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron to the market. He was a very good professional, so he came the nightly round of inspection. Then he watched both night and day to see that the work was done as well as possible. And at this very moment, he came into the forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. Now, see what's the strange thing that happened. Naturally, the first thing he saw was the tall ragamuffin. Why he's called ragamuffin the peddler? Because he was wearing rags, and plus he was a vagabond. So he's just like a very poor man. He was lying there close to the furnace. Now what happened? He saw the tall ragamuffin who had eased his way so close to the furnace that steam rose from his wet rags. The ironmaster did not follow the example of the blacksmiths who had hardly deigned is cared, who had hardly deigned to look at the stranger. He walked close up to him, looked over him very carefully, then tore off. Tore off means removed. Then tore off his slouch hat to get a better view of his face. I think you must have got the image. The peddler was lying there on the ground. So the ironmaster went there, removed the hat, and he saw the face. Then, that of course it's you, Niels Olof, he said. How you do look. Now what happened? This ironmaster got mistaken that this man was his old acquaintance. Acquaintance means somebody whom you know. So this man got mistaken. Now what should the peddler have done? He should have said, sir, you are mistaken, I am not this man. But then something occurred to him. And what is that? Just see. The man with the rat traps had never before seen the ironmaster at Ramsjo and had not even known what his name was. But it occurred to him that if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, he might perhaps throw him a couple of krona. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. Did you get this point? The point is, he was not Niels Olof. He knew that he should have told the ironmaster, "You are mistaken," but he thought in his mind that if this man is thinking I am his old friend, because of friendship and because of my condition, he might give me some money. And in the greed of getting more, he did not want to cheat him. He said, if he is getting mistaken, let him get mistaken. So, this is the condition of a person inside the rat trap. First emotion is of happiness, second emotion is of fear, and the third emotion is the greed of getting more. And in this greed, he actually did not say or did not tell a lie, but he covered that particular portion also. He should have accepted, I am not Neil Solu, but he did not. So, see what he did. Yes, God knows things have gone downhill with me. So this yes said that he was accepting, he was Neil Solo. Okay. God knows things have gone downhill with me, he said. You should not have resigned from the regiment. Now here we find something. Regiment is a small portion of army where people, the soldiers get together. Like you must have heard about Gorkha regiment, the Rajputana regiment. They are called as regiment. Now here that means that both he, the ironmaster, and he was thinking this man to be Neil Solo, they were there in the same regiment. And people, all those soldiers who are there in the regiment call each other by the name as comrade. Like if somebody's name is Ajay, they'll say comrade Ajay. If somebody's name is supposingly Rajendra, they'll say comrade Rajendra. That way they do it. Okay. So now the man with the rat, you should not have resigned from the regiment, said the ironmaster. That was the mistake. If only I had still been in the service at that time, it never would have happened. Well, now, of course, you'll come home with me. Do you find something in this language? The way he says this, if only I had still been in the regiment. That tone is of arrogance and superiority. He said, if I had been there, no, in the regiment, this would not have happened. And you also should not have resigned from the regiment and all that. He was trying to show his superiority. But still on the same tone, he said, well, now of course you'll come home with me. Said, come home with me. He invited the peddler to his house. Now, should the peddler go? Maybe yes, maybe no. If he goes just now, in the morning it will be known, because just now it is darkness and only the light from the forge is there. But in the morning, this ironmaster would come to know he is not Neem Solo. And plus at the same time, he had the 30 kroners with him. So let us see whether he accepts or whether he refuses. Let us see. To go up along to the manor house. Manor house is the big bungalow that people have in Sweden. They call it manor house. Okay? To go up along to the manor house and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade. That, however, did not please the tramp. No, I couldn't think of it, he said, looking quite alarmed. Suddenly, the look on his face was of alarm, like he was frightened. And he said, no, I can't come. Then he thought of the 30 kroners. To go up to the manor house would be like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. Like, you don't let the problem come to you, you go into the problem. He said, no, I can't go there. Then he only wanted a chance to sleep here in the forge and then sneak away as inconspicuously as possible. Conspicuous means which is very clearly seen. Inconspicuously, secretly, without being seen. And sneak away is, you understand how a thief goes. Then sneak away as inconspicuously as possible. The ironmaster assumed that he felt embarrassed because of his miserable clothing. Please don't think that I have such a fine home that you cannot show yourself there. You'll find again a tinge of arrogance there. He's saying, don't think that I've got such a fine house that you cannot come to my house. But still he was convincing this man. Then he said, Elizabeth is dead. Elizabeth was his wife. Elizabeth is dead, as you may already have heard. My boys are abroad and there is no one at home except my oldest daughter and myself. We were just saying that it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. Here, this point, I'll draw your attention to this point. If you know the peddler, was he lonely? Yes. Was the crofter lonely? Yes. Is the ironmaster lonely? Although he has the company of his daughter, still you'll find that he is lonely. See, in this line it is said, it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. So if you are asked a question which is an NCERT question also, are all the characters in this story lonely? Yes, 3 characters you have seen, all 3 are there lonely. Then, we didn't have any company for Christmas. Now come along with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. But the stranger said no and again no. And the ironmaster saw that he must give in. So here I am concluding this particular session. What happened here in this particular session, just for a revision, he cheated the crofter, entered the forest, got lost into the forest, entered an iron mill. A blacksmith and his helper was working in the iron mill. They welcomed, they allowed the peddler to stay. The ironmaster came, and circumstances happened that this ironmaster, in the darkness of the forge, got mistaken that this peddler was Neil Soluf, who was his old regimental comrade. He invited him home, and the peddler, because he was not Neil Soluf and plus he had the 30 kroners, he refused. He tried to convince him, but still he refused. But we find that the tone of invitation was arrogant, and plus he had that superiority complex. You can call him pompous also. Pompous, pompous nature. So here we find that this is how he invited him home, but he refused. Now let us discuss the questions which can be asked from this particular portion. The first question is, what were the peddler's emotions as he stole that money? When and how did the peddler realize that he had fallen into the rat trap? Then the description of the iron mill. Fourth, why did the blacksmith not notice that the man had entered the forge? Then the last thing, why had the ironmaster, fifth question, why had the ironmaster come to the forge in the night? And sixth is, why did the peddler decline the ironmaster's invitation? Because later on in the same chapter, you'll hear that he declined the ironmaster's invitation, but he accepted his daughter's invitation. So this becomes an important question, that in spite of the fact that he was going to the same house, the circumstances were still the same. He refused the ironmaster's invitation, but he accepted Edla's, the daughter's invitation. So let us see how things happen in the later part of the chapter. Now in all we have done around 10 to 11 questions. So all these questions you need to revise, and you should know the gist of all those. But one thing which is essential is the tone of the ironmaster. You should not forget, it is pompous, it is arrogant, and plus arrogant tone, and at the same time he is having that superiority complex also. But he has declined the invitation. So I am stopping here with the second session of the rat trap. The next session will begin the third part. Thank you.